Welcome to the Second Half Podcast. We are back with another episode. I'm your host, Jabari Saunders. Please make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Hit the website at thesecondhalfpod.com. Social media is at Second Half Podcast. So without further ado, we got a great episode about to come to you. We've got the amazing Kerhyl Gantt on the call. Welcome to the podcast, Kerhyl.
Hey, Jabari. So good to talk to you again.
Yes. I mean, I'm the story we've been able to talk about, the journey. I'm excited for everyone to just kind of hear it, a new perspective, something different and fresh. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's kick it off. Like, where did the journey begin? Where are you from? Where are the roots from?
Yeah. So well, first I'm excited to talk about all this. I realize I don't talk about it a ton.
Yeah.
I don't reflect as much on like the past and the story and where I'm from. But no, I'm from Houston, Texas, and real Houston, Texas.
Okay, H-Town.
Yeah, not Missouri City, not Sugarland, not all the surrounding areas.
Like, gotta make sure y'all know.
Yeah, Texas people are very proud people. So absolutely. But no, grew up in Houston, Texas, and my family is all from the Deep South, Louisiana, Brenham, Texas, kind of in the Deep South in that area. So Texas, Louisiana has always been kind of home.
Yeah.
And swimming and sports have been a part of my life literally forever. Some type of activity was always a part of my life. And I think some of it too kind of came from, my parents being super loving, modest beginnings, but like not really having the opportunity to play sports as much.
Yeah.
Like my mom grew up in segregated schools in Louisiana, which is still hard for me to believe. And they didn't really have access to pools or to, real organized sport. And my dad, tall, athletic, but, more on the academic side. He didn't really play organized sport either. So for me, I think it was probably all their pent up energy that
we didn't get to make it, so somebody in this house gonna get after it.
Exactly. You're gonna get in that water and learn how to swim.
There you go. Okay, so as you said, you started off swimming. Were there any other activities that you participated in? We'll get into the swimming story, of course, but was there anything else that just kind of sparked your interest when you were growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I did a ton of activities. I was pretty athletic as a child, so swimming was one, but gymnastics, dance, cross country. I unfortunately am athletically gifted, but I don't have hand-eye coordination, so I don't play any sports with equipment, basketball, softball. Like that doesn't work for me, but anything that is more like pure, like just body led, like those were my sports.
I got you.
But swimming definitely came out on top during that time frame.
I got you. Awesome. Being in Houston, of course, in the South, being a black woman, of course, back then, a black little girl, like so many different stigmas we'll talk about, but how did you find yourself in swimming? Like that's not usually a first sport that, people like instantly gravitate to. Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. It was, it wasn't the popular sport. So I grew up in inner city Houston. Usually you ran track or you played football and basketball. Like those were the popular sports that all of your friends played. So swimming wasn't something that, like you weren't bragging about in the hallways necessarily. And, you really kind of had to find one that you really like it or feel connected to your team. And for me, it's one of those things where I was blessed in that in Houston, we had a team that was an all black swim team in the inner city that was free and kind of paid for by the government. So it made it accessible for us. Whereas in many other pockets around the world in the US and Texas, it was more of an elite sport. You needed to, pay heavy dues and, you had to have a swimming pool and it wasn't something that you actually had in the inner city. And so having a program like that made it more accessible, you're around, a ton of other black kids that looked just like you, so you felt comfortable, felt like it actually was a part of the community. Probably what helped made it a lot easier for me to feel accepted by the sport and really feel like it's something that I can be a part of. Whereas if we didn't have that, I don't think swimming would have been my final
Yeah.
sport. And so that's how it was helpful for me. But of course, you can imagine all the other stereotypes and challenges when it comes to your hair,
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
Black woman in school and swimming every single day. Like, that's really hard to deal with. So when you're growing up as a little girl and, you're maturing and you're trying to figure out how to fit into kind of everyday life as a young kid, that is one thing that kind of made you stand out, but that's something I embraced.
Yeah.
It was like no one else would say they swim, so I became known as a swimmer.
Love it.
So that kind of became my stick in middle school and high school.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think you said something there of like, it's interesting how important it is for representation to be seen and be a part of at that early stage of your journey and your career. And, we go through this even, after sports, but like seeing someone being comfortable in the space, surrounded by people who look like you, talk like you, walk like you, is incredibly important. That helps you feel welcome in certain sports and at different activities. And it's like, you can be yourself. You don't have to be as tight, and you can truly be yourself. So, I mean, so now that one is, it's unheard of to understand that there's a swim team in the middle of Houston that really has a bunch of Black and brown kids that are participating in swim. I think that from that space and that journey that you were a part of, how were you able to kind of build off of that? Like, of course, you built relationships within that, but like, how did that kind of get you to start thinking competitively, or when you started to continue on in swimming?
Yeah, no, it was like this particular swim team. We were an all-Black swim team for the most part. We had, a couple of other races included too, but for the most part, an all-Black swim team. But we were good. Like we were athletic.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things you realize, like, a lot of people have the ability to be great swimmers or play in non-traditional sports because of our athleticism. So we had, when I was there as a young swimmer, a lot of the older swimmers were going to the Olympic trials and, qualifying for really big meets. And these are Black swimmers, getting full ride scholarships to UT and breaking records in college. So, you kind of saw this, like that representation piece was so important. So you felt like it was possible. But like my swimming journey started in a really odd way where I was kind of discovered, I guess you can say.
A little recruiting in there.
At another discovered at an inner city swimming program in the summer. And I'm sure many people probably, experience this at some point. But you have the inner city public swimming pools, and they have swim lessons. And every summer from the age of 3 to, my mom probably would have done until I graduated high school, quite honestly. She would just put me in swim lessons for the summer because she didn't have a chance to learn how to swim when she was in Louisiana. Like, it just wasn't an opportunity for her. And her whole goal was to make sure that her kids knew how to swim. So she would put me in swim lessons every summer. And from the age of 3 until about the age of 8, you can imagine, like, all right, I know how to swim. Like, I shouldn't be in the same kind of swim lesson. And one of the USA coaches at that time from this program happened to be at the pool.
Okay.
And he saw me swimming and asked my mom, like, why is she in beginner swim lessons? Like, she can clearly swim. I'd love for her to come to a practice one day at Texas Southern University. That's where we practice. Okay. And, see if it's something that, like kind of a tryout, see if she would fit in, like it, and be able to hang. And that was the beginning of this journey.
That was the beginning of it, right? And so you're out of beginning swimming. Mom finally realized, said, okay, let's take you over to Texas Southern. And then what happened? Because I mentioned, was there a certain kind of shock value or anything like that when you first stepped in? Or did you come in like, I got this and I'm going to jump in and just take off and swim like a fish?
Right, absolutely. I thought I could just jump in and swim like a fish because I thought I was so good. I'm coming from this lesson, these public swim lessons where I was the best person in the pool. I got to that swim practice. That's the first time I've ever seen a real practice. And 2, done that many laps. I got in midway through practice. Jabari, I vomited everywhere because I've never worked that hard. I'm like 8 years old, vomiting, crying because it was beyond what I could even imagine. My mom had never seen it before either, so it was just a new experience for us. And so it definitely was a shock value, but I was able to keep up enough where they saw the potential. And literally from that day on, I swam every day, sometimes usually twice a day from the age of 8 until probably the age of 21.
Wow.
So that was kind of the kickoff to, Kerhyl Gantt committing to swimming.
Yeah. I mean, right there, that just shows your perseverance and willing to continue to go to fight. Like, you could have easily just turned around and said, you know what, this is a little too much. So, like, there's too much work involved. I'm 8 years old. I just want to go outside, have fun, chase the ice cream truck around type thing. You know what I mean? But that wasn't you.
Yeah.
You had a different mindset that I love, that kind of started to direct your pathway of, like, actually you showed up and said, actually, I want more.
Exactly.
More.
Like, I need to do better.
Yeah, like right. Your curiosity kind of turned on there, which is awesome to hear. So when was it for you that you knew that you could be an elite swimmer?
Yeah. Like I said, I was naturally athletic, and I progressed really quickly. Like, I started seeing real, like, elite swimming improvement very quickly. So no longer like in the swim pool kind of doing lessons, but actually like really getting pretty like strong times for my age group, and qualifying for meets pretty quickly that you typically maybe wouldn't qualify at, the age I started, which was still decent. Like 8 years for USA swimming, you're like right on the cusp of the time you should start into that sport. And, that was kind of a trigger pretty quickly that, okay, this is actually something I'm pretty good at. So at 9 and 10 and 11, qualifying for state meets in my age group and qualifying for things you would call zones where you'd represent different parts of the country, being one of the only Black people at a lot of those meets. I started to realize I had a gift for it.
Yeah.
And a work ethic for it at a young age that really helped. And also I realized too, it was like, this was kind of for me an opportunity to, almost like a way out, opportunity to experience something more. So I kind of knew that, oh, I'm hearing you can go to college, off of scholarships. I'm seeing these older kids, kind of get rewarded for their swimming. Like, this is a lane I can be in to help have some success in other areas that I don't think I was aware of beforehand. And that really kind of powered me too.
Oh, I love it. Beyond, obviously, it sounds like your mom and dad were very key in the process for you. Did you have any other like mentors or someone who helped you navigate your journey, coach or anything like that?
Yeah. Oh, coaches. Absolutely. The coaches were, for me and all my teammates in that type of program, like the glue.
Yeah.
So like, and we had, like our 4 coaches, Coach Grasshopper, Coach Mo,
Coach Grasshopper,
Coach Johnny Means, and Coach Thurman Robinson. So you can tell we're all from the South. Those were all of our coaches, and they were pivotal, honestly, into kind of shaping not only who we were as athletes, but who we were as people. Like really ingrained in kind of not just what we're doing 2 to 4 hours a day in the pool, but into everything. Kind of became a full family. And it's interesting looking back. I think I kind of realized too, like, I grew up in the inner city, very modest beginnings. For my childhood, like one of my family members was addicted to drugs and alcohol. And so that kind of like really ravaged like our family and created a lot of turmoil. So for me, I actually looked at swimming as escape too. That was my way of staying out the house, like figuring out how I move on and really staying busy. And even looking back now, I realized, looking at a lot of my teammates as adults, we all kind of had some type of challenging family dynamic. And so I started to realize pretty soon that all of those coaches were also people who helped really like all of the kids kind of navigate through those challenging dynamics. As a youth, as a young kid, I didn't realize it then, but now as an adult, I could look back and really
Yeah.
see that it was really more than the sport. It was really kind of, family and helping you grow up.
Yeah.
That way too. So yeah, they were mentors and peers and, cousins, uncles, dads. They
Yeah.
kind of became a part of the
A
family.
part of the family. Yeah. No, I get it. I think we all, once you kind of continue to grow and build, you've literally been with me every day, every hour, whether, the good, the bad, the ugly. You spent it all. You've been a voice of rhyme and reason for you as you kind of continue to grow, which is great. And that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, they reprimand you when you're not doing well, when you're doing poorly in school, like all beyond the sport. There,
you need that tribe around you for sure. Exactly. For me, which I hated training, I have a love-hate relationship with it. Of course, I love the end results of it, but that first step is always the most difficult part, and you kind of alluded to that. The first day you showed up and literally 8 years old, you were throwing up. As you started to continue on in your journey, tell me a little bit about what the swimming training regimen is like. Like, give me the Cliff Notes version of how brutal it is, just in case I happen to want to jump in the pool and want to train like you and just experience that one time in my life, just so I can check it off my box. What's that like?
One, I'm actually going to hold you to that one day.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
Be careful. You're going to do so much out. But no, I would say swimming is probably one of the hardest sports, and the only sport that might be harder is boxing. Jeez. If I were to be a betting person, I would bet that.
Mm-hmm. I would probably agree without even swimming like that.
I mean, the endurance, the conditioning, it's no joke. And for the most part, when you're an elite swimmer, you essentially have 2 to 3 practices a day. You'll swim in the morning, and typically that would be, say, about 5,000 yards to 8,000, depending on how hard the workout is. You'd have a practice in the afternoon, which is about that same amount of yardage. And then at some point you have weight training or kind of dry land. We call them dry land in swimming, but any workouts out of the water to really help on your conditioning. It could be running, it could be stadiums, it could be weights, it could be bands. And, all of the swim workouts are about 2 hours each. So you're spending about 4 hours in the water and maybe add another hour for dry land. So 5 hours prepping. And so it's not, it's real. You have to have a heart for it. Because you're only going to get better the more you push yourself past your threshold.
Yeah.
If you're not pushing yourself past your threshold, you're not going to improve your timing. And so you have to be prepared to feel that pain essentially, and then push beyond that essentially every practice if you actually want to see improvement. So there aren't any shortcuts. Once you get to that elite level, you actually have to put in the work. So It's tough. I don't know if I would do it again, to be honest. It's hard.
I was going to say, how do you build that mental toughness, that mental endurance? Because that's a lot, at a young age, and having just life going on around you. How did you build that mental toughness that help continue to push you?
Yeah. It's, that's a tough one. It's one, you're looking at a black line the entire time. You're on a team, but it's not a team sport like basketball or football. So you really are you're the only one who's going to experience, who's going to be the one seeing the results of your work ethic. But that is still kind of where team comes in, the competition, who's going the fastest during certain sets and kind of competing against each other. Having all the time, workouts and trying to finish certain laps in certain times. That's kind of where the game starts to play in your head. Okay. So you really have to be comfortable with competing against yourself and that clock, and find a way to enjoy that. But it's hard. I wouldn't say I kept the mental toughness my entire career. It definitely petered out at some point.
Okay. So, awesome. Yeah. Okay. So Texas Southern, obviously you're competing with the world's best, competing for Olympic trials, all those things. And one thing you mentioned is hey, I can use this sport to take me to school, take you places around the world,
Hmm.
travel, all those things. What was that like for you to in the recruiting process? Like, what was
Yeah.
next, I guess, for you in that next stage of like knowing, okay, I'm here. I don't know if there's an age cutoff or how that works with swimming, and then you got 4 years,
Yeah.
and then once you hit high school level, you switch over, and then after high school, you go off to college. Type
Yeah.
is it the same kind of calendar, if you will, or schedule timing
Yeah.
for swimmers as well?
Yeah, it's fairly similar. The only thing that's different though is, club swimming is really the more elite swimming program
Gotcha,
versus like high school or your school
gotcha.
program. But it's still the same timing in that once you like finish high school, then you get recruited for your college programs. And
Hmm.
most swimmers do go to college because of the way the sport is set up. You don't like swim professionally or like leave school necessarily to swim professionally like you might do in basketball, for instance. But I remember that recruiting process. That was such an enjoyable time because
Yeah,
it's one of those things where I always knew swimming would be my way to get to school for free. And then so once you get to junior year, senior year, recruiters are calling you for different schools. You're getting all the letters in the mail. They're coming to visit your house or
yeah,
flying you out to visit them. That was one of those moments where it's like, okay, like mama, I made it. Like, I
yeah.
can go to school and go to school for free. They were offering full scholarships, which was honestly the goal. Um, and so it was, we do for sure have coaches come out to meet,
Hmm.
similar to you might have coaches come out to games, but it's not as much so because we have our time.
Gotcha.
You can actually like look at the time too because the
Hmm.
time doesn't lie. Um, and so that was a really big factor. And the process, they come in, you visit, I flew into a couple of schools to visit the coach. I went to Howard. Um, I was really interested at NYU. Cornell was another school.
Hmm.
Emory was another program. So I would go to visit some of the programs, meet the coach, see if I like it, see if it's the right program for me. And then essentially, I thankfully had a coach just make my choice,
Really?
which was good. I had options.
Yeah,
Yeah, which felt really good because it was a lot of hard work, and
yeah,
it wasn't normal in my community to be able to have those types of options.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I love it. And then
yeah,
obviously the journey took you to the wonderful DC area where you attended Howard University, of course, which is
yes,
amazing. Yes, an
the illustrious
HBCU,
Howard
the
University.
illustrious Howard
Yep.
University. Yes, there we go. We go. It's gonna be said in every circle. You're gonna know when somebody went to Howard or not. So
Howard people are very proud people too. Yeah.
yes, yes, for sure. No, I'm big fan of anyone who went to Howard. So you took your talents to Howard. You went to DC. Why Howard? You had a bunch of other schools that you mentioned. Why the
Yeah.
HBCU experience?
Oh my goodness. Best decision I've ever made. Seriously, I would never change that decision. If I had to go back in time. But Howard was really interesting. Howard, NYU, Cornell, Emory, all great schools.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember talking to my dad one day, and I was choosing between two programs, Howard and a PWI, and he asked, and I was really leaning towards the other program. And he just said, Kerhyl, like, you're going to do great everywhere you go.
Hmm.
Like, pick your school. Like, you're going to be fine.
You
Everything
gonna
will work out
thrive?
well. But, like, you'll be good. But do you want to go to a program where you can become a really strong, smart, educated woman? Or do you want to go to a program where you can become that, but also like really become a strong Black woman and really just be in a space where you can almost embrace and explore your culture freely
Hmm.
and really identify who you are in that space? And when he said that, Jabari, that is honestly what kind of clicked for me. And all right, easy. Like
Yeah,
Howard's like definitely like the program. And yeah, when I say the type of experience you have at an HBCU, it's one, it was a culture shock for me,
hmm,
which I think is hard, is you don't hear often because it seems like you're going to one, like a monolithic school with,
hmm,
everyone kind of, from the same race essentially. But it's a culture shock in that that's the first time I've seen so much diversity within one place,
yeah,
within my culture. And that was so enlightening for me to just see all the beautiful shades and backgrounds of, my culture, and being able to express that freely, safely, and just kind of grow and, who I feel I should become with it when it comes to being Black, being a woman, being an athlete, being a student. That was like one of the best experiences ever.
Yes. And then on top of that, all those great things you just mentioned, and you get to do something that you loved and you're passionate about and with swimming, which is awesome.
Exactly. And for free.
Yeah, exactly. It's paid for. It's paid for. So give me a little glimpse into that space of your career. Obviously you coming from Houston, shooting up to DC, you're in the swim. Like, what was that? What's that kind of like? Were you around some of those, same swimmers you used to compete against? They just happened to be all there. Like, how was that space?
Yeah, it was actually pretty phenomenal. Some swimmers I competed against in the past, because there was another similar program to ours in Houston, also in Atlanta. So some of them were also at Howard, but we had quite a few people from the Caribbean who were there. So a ton of great sprinters. One of my best friends at the time was from Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay.
People from Trinidad and Tobago. And then we had a ton of, other Black swimmers who came from programs just around the world, the San Francisco area, where else? The DC area and the Florida area. So, it's almost this accumulation of some of the best Black swimmers who chose Howard, all in one space now. So you still kind of have that same community and vibe. And so that was, a really just phenomenal experience to do that again. I will say, though, with swimming, it was interesting because, it wasn't USA anymore. Now you're in college. So it's different. You're almost resetting.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to compete at this level, and what is practice like? And, you have different coaches, which was the first time I had different coaches my entire swim career. And so really resetting your mind and trying to adjust, honestly, was a hard thing for me at first.
Yeah.
Like I did well my first 2 years, and then the third year, that's where that mental toughness and the burnout started to set in.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, because you realize it's still a lot to continue to take on and manage.
Yeah.
So I had to start making some real decisions on where do I want to go next in my career. Yeah.
And so obviously, the campus there is beautiful, being around so many individuals that come from similar backgrounds, but even like you said, you had that culture shock a little bit, but it allowed for you to explore some new cultural experiences that you probably never had, growing up, that unlocked so many different things for you. What were some of those takeaways while you were at HU that helped you thrive and kind of decide how you wanted to impact swimming, but also out of the pool?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I'd say some of the big things that helped me thrive in and out of the pool were, one of the first hard decisions I think I actually had to make was when I decided to transition out of my swim career. And so that was a big learning experience for me, in that I really learned when it's okay to pivot to something new, that you're not used to. Like I swam my entire life essentially by that time. And so, realizing that some things aren't necessarily quitting, it's just deciding to pivot and refocus. And kind of what it means to run towards something versus run away for something. Like, all right, I have a new vision or a new goal or a new dream that takes different type of energy. Like, I'm ready to run towards that. So that means I need to, leave certain things behind. And so that was the first time in my career, and like through my time at Howard swimming, I had to make a decision like that for myself.
Yeah.
Like no one else was making it for me. Parents aren't there anymore. Like I, have to make these decisions. So that was a big one. The other takeaway I had to non-swimming was just, I'd say one, really kind of becoming comfortable with who I am. Like what it means kind of once again, at a school like Howard, to be a Black woman in a sport or in a program or at an internship and understand what it means to bring my full self to that experience no matter what, and being really comfortable in it. Like I really learned that through my Howard experience at an early age, which I'm so grateful for now, because it's, the authenticity piece is really important.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the first time I had the chance to really explore that on my own and in my own space.
No.
With the whole community to back you up.
Yeah.
Because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, one, the first part you said of just like identifying when it's time to transition and kind of put the swim goggles away and the swimsuit away, or put the shoes away or sneakers or whatever it is, like there's a lot there. And I think we all go through it, and quite a few people who even listen to this podcast have, are going through that, that may be in that transition space. Yeah. And it's so important because it's real. I mean, let's be real. Your body is only going to allow you to do things for so long. Your mental is only going to allow you to do things for so long. It's like, listen, I'm burnt out. Like, that's just the reality of the activity, the sport, whatever it is. So that's something there that you were gratefully able to identify during your career, to understand that you pivot. Yeah. Now, of course, you have that support, the community there. Did you have anyone specifically there to help you through that transition, or were you solely taking that on yourself?
Yeah. No, I definitely had people. It's funny, actually, I had decided during the summer before my senior year not to re-sign my scholarship. And I was in Portland, Oregon, interning with Nike. And it was on my mind, Jabari, because I felt like I was quitting. Like, I got one more year. Yep. Am I just quitting something versus sticking it out and just finishing, even though I really was just at a place I just did not like it anymore. And I was actually talking with, I walked into Howard White's office. And for those people who don't know Howard White, he's like a GOAT at Nike, at Jordan, signed Jordan. Yep. He's like one of the godfathers of the brand.
Yeah.
I walked into his office as an intern, and he called me swimmer. Like, what's going on? Like, what's on your mind? And I had to just sit down and talk to him. Like, I'm thinking about quitting swimming. Like, I actually am having a hard time making this decision, but I just feel like it's not in my heart anymore. And it just brings me down as, think about practice and all the time you have to commit. And he was actually the one who helped me reposition the way I think about it.
Yeah.
And just really think about it as, you're not quitting, you're realizing this chapter is over.
Yeah.
And you have many more chapters ahead. And so it's actually really good that you're recognizing it and aware, like you're being self-aware enough to realize that it's time to move on to the next phase.
Yeah.
And go full force. Don't, beat yourself up because you feel like you didn't finish what other people are saying like should be the right path or the right way to do it. And if it weren't for him, I actually don't know if I would have, not signed the papers for the last year. So he was huge in that decision.
I mean, like you said, H is Howard White. When you tap into his story, because it's incredible to just see who he's connected to beyond just the Nike, the Jordan piece, but like his story is incredible. He's definitely been a mentor to me. I've sat on his couch in therapy session, as we all have. It's just like, hey, I'm just checking in, and next thing you know, we breaking something down with family and like something that you dealt with and like, how did we get here? So he's an amazing person to just connect with and talk to. Yeah. Love it. So before we kind of get to that next piece, I want to know, before you really signed the paper and said, you know what, I'm going to shift, like, what was the flex for you that like I remember doing this in my career, whether it's at Howard or before, like it was that moment, like, I beat the world's XYZ athlete. You know what I mean? Like, what was that for you?
Oh man, I'd say it was right before Howard, senior year of high school. And like USA is big, especially in Texas. It's elite. A lot of Olympians come out of those programs.
Mm-hmm.
I might have two moments, Jabari, but one.
Let's do it. I want to hear both of them then.
Qualifying for, it's really when I qualify for stuff, it's like, you're like, all right, I'm that person. Like, all right, I'm ready. Or being selected for a specific meet. Qualifying for something called zones, like in swimming, that's a big deal in USA because it's like the path towards Olympic trials and like representing the country. And it's when it's like north, south, east, west of the country. You basically pick the best swimmers to compete against each other together, like in one state. And I remember qualifying for a zone meet for the first time.
Okay.
Like that was, yeah, you get the full outfit. You get new suits.
Yeah.
You're part of this new team. It's not a team anymore. It's like it's the USA zone team. Like it's a full kind of like, okay, I'm like progressing.
It's like your badge that you gotta like. I get to represent this because I worked hard for. I got you. There you go.
Exactly. You actually get the badge and the bag. So it's like you're, every other meet, you're like, oh shoot, she went to zones. Like that was huge. And then being selected to go to an Olympic training camp. And so like being coached by real Olympians, like that was a big one too. Cause those are things where you have to be picked for.
Yeah.
And so like those moments were really the moments where it's like, all right, like I'm competing and practicing at that time with some of the best of the best, and people who've gone on to be in the Olympics and all of that. So those were my flex moments.
Yeah, right, I like it. Like legit, you got to swim. I remember going to Colorado Springs and seeing the facilities, for USA, and it's like the way that I saw them just training is like, oh, it's really it's a whole nother world, and so you're just immersed in what the sport is that you do, which I love. I mean, you eat, drink, sleep, swimming, and it's awesome to just see it.
If you want to be successful, you're gonna experience that at least once, though, Jabari.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna hold you to one.
One. Okay, I got to get myself together. Let me at least start baby swim steps. I'll just start doggy paddling and figure that out, right? No. So you signed the papers. You went to your coach. You said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna end my scholarship here." What was the plan, kind of, for you in that space while you were at Howard?
Yeah. So I was I became really focused on what I wanted to do next after college.
Okay.
Like around junior, senior year, I just started realizing that the world's so much bigger, and swimming's a good sport, but it's not like if you go pro in swimming, which is really hard, and it's really only an Olympic sport, so you kind of have a one shot every 4 years to really shine. If you're not going pro, and similar to basketball or football, you can really make a living off of going pro. You can't do that in swimming. So I realized pretty early on, like, all right, it's probably time to think about what my next career and passion would be. And I honestly shifted a lot of that energy to focusing on that. So when I was in school, I started changing my schedule where I would intern on Tuesdays and Thursdays and have all my classes on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I got an internship with the Washington Wizards basketball team because I wanted to work in sport. 1 year I worked with the Washington Capitals. And so I was using that time essentially to just figure out what do I like, what do I want to do, kind of really just be very strategic and thoughtful about getting into a space that I knew was also hard to get into because I still love sport and I want to work in sport. And it's hard, it's a lot of luck involved in landing like some of those jobs, as you know. And so I wanted to give myself every shot. And so I did kind of pivot to focusing on the next thing versus focusing so much on swimming at that time. And it paid off for me to really focus on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No. And so as you were finding these internships, did you do that on your own, or did you leverage resources that the school had for you at Howard?
Yeah, I leveraged a little bit of both. Mainly leveraged a lot of resources because, when I was a student athlete in college, I did the student athlete advisory committee. Like I was a part of the clubs that help you develop leadership. Went to the NCAA leadership camp. So like those. I raised my hand for those things. And, I realized too at that time, and, people are listening who are in college sports now, like take advantage of that stuff because it really does help you meet many new people, get exposure to other people in that space who are maybe working in the types of jobs you want to work in. That makes it so much easier to get an internship or get a entry level job right out of school. And so I took advantage of it. Like most people weren't, because you're busy, you're in college, you're just not thinking about that, but take advantage of that. So that was helpful. And even with Nike specifically, I remember we set up a career fair, and I really wanted Nike to come to the career fair. And so I remember they signed up to come, and I raised my hand to be the one to escort like the HR people around and like set up the booth, because Nike was my dream. And that's where I started meeting the people there. And that really helped me, one, see whether or not I like it, but then two, kind of gave me the courage and confidence to apply for those internships in the summer, which I don't know I would have had if I didn't take advantage of those programs in school.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like, no, you're spot on there.
Take advantage of all the programs, man.
I mean, you're spot on there. Like the schools, the athletic departments, they're talking to sponsors, they're talking to organizations, they're talking to, the NCAA, whatever it is. Like they have direct access for you, and it's nothing for them to pick up the phone and advocate on your behalf. And that's a part of the battle, you know what I mean? And so when you have that, like definitely use that, no matter how big, small the school is. Allow them to, advocate for you and have conversations on your behalf. So that's something you're spot on there. All right, before we get into the second half, we gotta take a quick break for what I love to do is a 30-second timeout to just have a little interesting quick hitters with Miss Kerhyl Gantt. All right, so we'll keep it light first. Don't be too nervous. It's not too bad this time. All right, so first question. So what is your go-to breakfast in the morning?
Donut.
Donuts. Any specific donut, or just give me the donuts and
glazed.
Okay.
Glazed or like basic plain.
Okay. I love it.
I'm always a fan of it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Who was your toughest race against?
Oh, man. Oh, there was one girl on my team. Her name was Haley McGregory. She was a backstroker. Okay. And she was a world record holder. Unfortunately, for Olympic trials, she came out third instead of one or two. Oh, wow. So she didn't make it to the Olympics, but still had the fastest time in the world. Wow. And she was that was always the person I would wish I could beat, but she would always edge me out, of course, because she was a world record holder. Yeah. In practice, during races. So, yeah. Haley McGregor. I still remember her name. Yeah, I haven't talked to her since I was like 17.
It's funny how those fun races or those fun competitive moments still like imprint in your mind there, right? All right. So what is your favorite sport other than swimming?
To participate in, I actually really like cross country.
Okay.
Growing up, believe it.
She's a runner. She loves
I don't know why
that
I'm a glutton for
You just love pain. That's what it is. I see who you are now. All right. What was your pre-swim routine?
Ooh. It changed throughout different phases. I remember when I was younger, we would all do this thing where we had to like eat honey right before, because we thought it would give us a boost of energy. Okay. Like right before a race, especially if you're doing a sprint race, we like pour honey in our hands and like eat the honey. Like it's probably the worst thing ever. It's not good for you.
Just add some sugar.
That was when I was young.
Placebo effect,
Exactly. But no, as I matured, I was big on visualizing my races. So like I would visualize my race, and I would actually try to see if I can visualize it to the point where I almost get the time that I want without looking at the clock. So like that was kind of my big thing. Like, how do I visualize the full race from start to end?
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Who are your top 3 most inspiring people?
Jeez. These are good ones, Jabari.
We come with the real now.
I know. Great mentor friend of mine, Larry Miller.
Okay.
He's definitely someone I'm truly inspired by. Um, I'd obviously say my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, without her, there will be no me. And she's,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, like, worked through a lot of perseverance and, like, just to make sure we had all the things we needed. And then the last person I'd say, you actually might know this person too, a really good friend and mentor of mine, Pamela Neferkara.
Yeah.
Is someone that I'm inspired by. And these are all people in my life. I could say like Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
But people who,
yeah.
I talk to on a daily or like really feel connected with.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. All right. What's the best vacation spot you've ever been to?
Oh man. I love to vacay. Best vacation spot, Kyoto, Japan. Absolutely.
Okay. I have to
and
add
I pick my
list.
vacations based on locations, like destinations I want to stay in. So like I try to pick the best experiential hotel experience, and then that's like how I do.
Okay.
So,
all right. All right. For sure. All right. Favorite food?
Pizza.
Okay.
Gourmet pizza.
Okay. I was going to say, are you like a New York, a Detroit, a Chicago deep dish, or is it just you want the simple gourmet?
Like Italian based, like gourmet pizza where you take the scissors.
I got you. Yep.
Super
very authentic. I love it. Okay. I'm with that. All right. What album or artist can you listen to for the rest of your life?
Beyonce.
I figured that. Houston.
I know. I'm from Houston.
Exactly. It's like Miss Knowles Carter.
Yeah, my first concert was Destiny's Child.
Oh, You're through and through. All good. Okay. All right. Ninth question. What is your favorite book that you've read?
I just have a favorite book I've read recently. I don't know if I have one of all time because it always changes. But a couple of months ago, I finally read a book written by Elaine Welford. She kind of the head of a major magazine like Teen Vogue. And the name of the book is More Than Enough.
Okay.
And that was actually, it's kind of like her autobiography, but it's actually really good to read an autobiography by someone who's similar to me in age and race and experience. Yeah. And just really see like the depths of her experience and kind of like make you feel like you're not alone in your journey. Yeah. And so that was actually a book I really appreciated. So More Than Enough by Elaine.
I'll definitely have to add that to the second half book club list, and we'll make sure that one's included for sure. All right, last and final question. All right, are you someone who would prefer call, text, or FaceTime?
FaceTime.
Okay. All right. She loves a good FaceTime conversation. She's like, I don't want to text. I don't want to call. Just FaceTime me. I want to see the face that I'm talking to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be beautiful. Just, quick FaceTime is good.
No, I love it. I love it. Well, that is a 30-second time out with the second half with Kerhyl Gantt. So it is that time to jump into the second half. And this is where we get to tap in beyond, where you were in the pool and at the illustrious Howard University. So let's dive right into this part. I'm excited for everyone to kind of hear where your career and journey is headed. So internship, you started out Wizards, the Capitals. Where did that kind of navigate and lead you to as your, like, what defined you to figure out what was next?
Yeah, it was really, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do at first. Mm-hmm. So when I was at Howard, I changed my major 3 times, Jabari. I was a finance major, an insurance actuarial science major. I just did not know what to do. I wanted to make sure I made a lot of money because I didn't come from money. So I picked all the wrong things that I just was not really interested in. Investment banking, I tried that for a summer.
Wow.
I experienced. Like that's what I recommend to everyone.
That's
Try
what
it
it's,
because you never know.
that's what college is for. I think, try things that you've never
Hmm.
done to really check those things off the box and get to know yourself a little more. I agree with that.
Exactly. Exactly. You can't learn it in a textbook, so try to experience it. But after I graduated, I graduated with a finance degree and interned at Nike. And I was, thankful that I actually had a chance to intern at Nike my sophomore, junior, and senior year summer of college. And then, I graduated in 2008, where there was a big recession, so nobody was essentially getting a job then.
Yep.
And I interned for a full year without really knowing if it would turn into a actual job or not at Nike in Portland, Oregon. But during that time, my first internship was in finance. And when I was at Nike, I realized that I actually prefer marketing. Like, I like marketing. I
Hmm.
really love the craft of what marketing has to offer. And that quickly made me realize that that area is something I wanted to focus on, honestly, whether it was at Nike or not.
Yeah.
Marketing is where I wanted to go, like, deep and just become an expert in. And thankfully, it was at that brand. And once I graduated, I essentially started a full career just trying to master kind of the craft of marketing with what I feel is one of the best companies in the world to
Yeah.
ever do brand marketing.
Yeah.
And that's where my journey started. And I basically created my own rotational program from there. Like, different types of marketing, digital, retail brand, in LA for the region, in global, in North America. I just created my own.
Yeah, like you did at
to make sure I
Howard,
can
like
learn it.
try it all, figure it out what you
Mhm.
like and you don't like. No, that's great. Like to
Exactly.
be able to have that rotational experience to tap into different facets of the company is important, no matter what company you're at, to like just understand like how to navigate your career. And then even before that, how did you what were the steps taken for you to kind of get yourself through the door? Like, did you have, continue that
Yeah.
conversation with H and, was it someone else who happened to,
Yeah.
or a mentor, or was it just going on and applying?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was a little bit of both. The first step was actually applying. And it's interesting, even though I had Washington Wizards experience and I was kind of building up my sports
Hmm.
portfolio, I guess, beforehand, intentionally, when it came time to apply for the Nike internship, I actually almost didn't do it because I
Mm.
didn't feel confident enough that I would get it.
Uh-huh.
You're reading the website, and it says, 50,000 people apply and only
Yeah.
2% land the
Yeah.
internship.
It can be a little
And honestly, in my
intimidating.
mind, I actually it's super intimidating, and I wasn't sure if I was good enough. Like, oh, I'm just not going to apply. Like, this isn't like I didn't think that would be in the cards for me. And all of this, you have to remember, coming from my background, all of this was still new. Like,
Hmm.
my family didn't have internships; they weren't necessarily corporate, so I'm just kind of the first generation going through that experience. And thankfully, back to your question about like mentors and peers and friends, I also say a lot of my mentors were my peers. And so my teammates
Mm.
and my classmates were the ones who actually persuaded me to apply. Like, if it weren't for them, I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have even applied for the internship. So stepping out on a ledge and, being okay with maybe failing, which I
Yeah.
think I was a little scared of, like not getting it, is actually what propelled me to kind of take that next step and actually apply. And then once I, got the internship, the next thing was, once I showed up to campus, to Nike's campus, for that internship, taking it really seriously.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You quickly notice there were a lot of people who didn't, kind of just fell into it as like a summer camp,
Yeah.
kind of what I would call it. But for me, it was serious. Like, no,
It's
I
serious.
need to land a job. I want to
Yeah.
work there. And I really took it seriously and like busted out all of my projects, made sure they were top notch, met as many people as I wanted to. And not because I wanted to get the job, because I was actually genuinely curious
Yeah.
about, like, wow, you're the person who created the Jordans.
Yep.
Okay, you're the reason why everyone in my neighborhood will wait in line for 5 hours, not go to school.
Yep.
Like, I actually just want to meet you and more about how you did it, because,
Exactly.
my worldview was more connected. And now I can meet the people who were responsible for creating that feeling.
Yeah.
And so I just dove all the way in and decided to embrace, love every moment, work long hours,
Yeah.
um, do more than I was asked to do, raise my hand for projects that I knew I didn't know anything about because I was new. Like I made sure that I maximized like that internship
It's
as
so
much as possible.
yeah, it's so important
Yeah.
because you have so many different takeaways that you even mentioned there. Like you're building relationships, you're learning to build on your work ethic that you have, and condition yourself to basically kind of lift weights and train your body to be in this corporate space and understand a bit more in depth of what marketing is. But beyond marketing, you're learning, and I think what I would even say you were able to take away through this kind of rotational program was you're able to kind of include those areas into your marketing strategy plan, kind of how you're building those things in the work that you're doing, which is super important. It's not necessarily about the specific work that you're doing or the ask that someone wanted you to do. It's more about how can you pull in all these other, layers or things that you can include and think beyond just the surface level, which is awesome. Here's a question for you.
Absolutely.
So how would you, in it seems that, like you said, marketing is exactly where you want it to be. You understood and you unlocked that for yourself through this space. How would you define marketing within sports? How would you define that for yourself and what you've learned over the years?
Ooh, that's a good question. How do you define marketing within sports? Actually, I like to take sports out of it first and just define marketing. For me, I would say marketing is, to me, the best marketing, and what at least I strive to do is being able to knowingly be responsible for shifting how people of a generation or a culture like fall in love with or perceive whatever you're touching. Like that's, and it's not by happenstance, because there are a lot of things that just happen by luck or it's like the right time, but like, no, you strategically like built exactly how you want to engage and connect with people in a way that actually shifts how people totally see the world.
Yeah.
And like for me, that's marketing. It's like the shift. It's not just selling or like creating demand, which yes, you do all those things too. I think it's a result of the first part if you really want to do it well and like make a mark. And that's how I perceive marketing. And the reason why I took it out of sport is because, I'm a big believer that regardless of the genre or the like type of, you could be working in sports or entertainment or pharmaceuticals or the airline industry or the auto industry. Like, all of those things I think are bearable, but that formula of how do you find a way to really help people transcend beyond what their belief is and really inspire them in a new way. That's something that like you have to build if you want to me, be truly a brand marketer and a storyteller. And then you find a way to do that for sport, for instance, or for any other industry. And so even when you mentioned the rotational program, so I wasn't in a rotational program. I just created my own
on your own.
I just like, you know what? I actually want to learn like these facets because I feel like they're so important to understand how people engage with you and how to build plans. And so I just, I'm going to do this next, and I'm going to go to this function next. And so that was my approach to really make sure I make the most of my craft. So yeah, that's how I would define marketing. And I think you can apply that to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like all industries. Yeah. Or people.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that as I continue to have conversations, there's one missing piece that I always want to correct myself after, the post-production is like, how does an individual define the role that they're in, no matter what it's in marketing or, whatever it is that we've had conversation in, like talking with Samir in a previous episode of like understanding him, unlocking him, truly being a producer, beyond and understanding what he's doing. It obviously got him an Oscar. So, it's like really, how do you unlock that for people who are listening to just understand so that they can kind of create their own kind of identity and understand truly what marketing or whatever endeavor it is that they may wish to get after. So while you were at Nike, Did you happen to set any goals during that time, or was it just all about experience for you?
Yeah, no, it was I definitely had goals, and a good mentor of mine, his name was Craig Mosbach. He early on in my career, maybe my first year, we had lunch, and one thing he mentioned was, Kerhyl, spend the first 10 years of your career mastering your craft.
Mm.
Like, actually, like, know it backwards, forwards, like, because it never really changes. Sure, different social media platforms change
Yeah.
or things like that change, but the foundation will never change. So, like, master knowing your craft. And so, starting my career, literally, I did spend the first 10 years just trying to actually understand what I'm doing.
Mm.
So, like, it didn't really matter so much like what sport category I was working on.
Mm-hmm.
It was more so, am I in a role where I can actually learn and execute on things that I know will make me even better forever, essentially, so that I can become the best at what I'm doing. And that's something that no one can ever take away from you. And so my first 10 years was dedicated to that. It wasn't really about the money. It wasn't really about the specific title necessarily, of course.
Yeah.
So within those 10 years, part of growing as a marketer, as a leader, is getting, progressing throughout the organization, learning how to lead, learning how to build more complex plans, build strategy. So that was all a part of it, but it truly was first 10 years just like
Mastery.
become an expert. All the other stuff, doesn't matter.
Got you. It's interesting, like how it changed from your collegiate and the growth and step by step of your chapters, right? It's like in college, you're like, I want to do whatever's going to make the most money. I need this bag. But, now then it evolved and like, okay, let's be strategic about this, and I think that there's a part where, yes, you want to enjoy, you want to have fun, you want to get to know all the good, the bad, the ugly of whatever, industry you're in. But also there comes a time it's like, okay, how do I truly get the work done and make it impactful and beneficial for the consumer that you're providing the service to or whatever it is. And no, I think you're spot on. I think as you kind of grow within your field, you learn some things along the way. It's like, it's not necessarily about the money. And I'm going to ask a question a little later, and I'm interested in where that's going to actually go. But no, we'll get to that part. But so you spent time here at Nike or you spent time at Nike, and then from there, where did you take your career?
Yeah, so I've just made a pivot 7 months ago now, to Amazon Prime Video, helping build kind of their sports point of view. So this was definitely almost kind of like my pivot from swimming to no longer swimming. Like now being at Nike for 13 years, like that was basically my young adult life, to finally deciding, like, is it time for something new, and taking a risk in a new industry, a fully new industry, essentially, and see if that's something that I'd be really good at. So I pivoted from footwear and apparel to now sports still, but media, tech, and entertainment, and still in marketing. So now I can take the last, 13 years of becoming an expert in marketing and see how I apply it to a completely new industry. And Jabari, the things that I'm learning now, like I think it's just making me such a better marketeer, and I'm also bringing a lot of value because obviously the experience I had was like incredible. So every day is a new day. Every day I'm definitely stretched in a new way, seeing something new from the first time, having so many different perspectives. So it's really good.
That's
really good.
awesome.
Definitely risky though. I had to think about it. I wish I could have sat on H's couch like I did, 15 years ago. And get his thoughts.
Get his thoughts through it. And I love that, the fact that you were able to kind of step outside of the comfort zone, get away from something you were so comfortable and used to kind of, as you said, kind of stretch your thinking a little bit. Something's different. What's kind of like the day-to-day responsibilities for you in this space now, and not even trying to compare it to what it was at Nike, but like it's new, it's fresh, it's it's talking about a platform and conveying a message in an artistic way of storytelling and all of those things. Like, what is that kind of broken down for you?
No, it's the day-to-days definitely change a little bit in that, it's like it's now I'm in tech.
Hmm.
So the type of people I'm working with and the type of problems we're trying to solve are just different. And so now it's not only building a marketing experience, but it's building that marketing experience in collaboration with product and engineer teams on how would you experience Prime Video? How would you actually experience this within a tech space? And then how do you build marketing on top of it,
Yeah.
which is new? That was maybe similar to footwear and apparel, like the product teams in footwear and apparel, but it's a more connected and like kind of like complex
Hmm.
build from an
Hmm.
engineering sense, I guess you can say. The other thing too I'd say is different, but a part of my day to day is also working with the production team in entertainment. So, working with producers who are building the shows and who actually build like how a Thursday night football game for the NFL would run from
Mm.
pregame shows to the game to the halftime to the postgame show. And so working with them to build a marketing and plan around all of that. So like
Yeah.
that, has also shifted. But then you still have your fun things. You produce a Super Bowl spot. So,
Yeah.
obviously still working with amazing ad agencies and producing a
Nice.
Super Bowl spot.
Yeah.
Hosting events and preparing for the NFL draft. So doing things on the ground and with social. So some of those
Nice.
things still are still the same, but it's
Yeah.
really cool to see how it connects with different types of teams I haven't worked
Yeah.
with before, like
Yeah.
our tech and product team and a production team.
No,
So
that's so
yeah,
awesome. Like
really cool.
yeah, it sounds like it's such a really cool space to be in, knowing how just, everything is evolving into digital platforms. You have, beyond just YouTube now, right? You have beyond just even, your social media platforms have invested in a live experience and shows and different storytelling. And it's
Mm-hmm.
even allowing for people to be in the hands of themselves now to kind of produce some things. So that's a
Yeah,
really cool space to be in. And I'm excited to see your journey there and understand, what
thank you.
is, what is to come with Prime Video there, which is so awesome to hear. And congrats again, and within that space and that new
Yeah,
role. Um, Question for you. So
thank you.
no, you're welcome. And so the question that I have now is, the skills that you learn from training, swimming, teamwork, building relationships, coaching, how are any of those things that you learned then, are you applying that now into the roles that you are in? Do those still kind of sit with you as you progress in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where I don't think you realize it until you're asked to really think about it because it becomes ingrained into like who you are.
Yeah.
But when one thing I did notice throughout my career so far is you can actually tell when you're working with people who were student athletes or like
Hmm.
played on a team at some point, even as an adult, because I do really think that being an athlete, playing on a team at a young age, you learn certain ways of like connecting with people and working with people, being a good leader or a good follower, because sometimes that being a good follower is being a
Yeah.
good leader too. Like all of that, like comfort from those types of experiences transcend into your work life.
Yeah.
And so when you're having those really challenging group projects, um, when you're under a lot of pressure and have a tight deadline, but you're also working with teammates who are under pressure, like how you deal with that and deal with people, I truly see that transcend from my swimming days to now my work days. And what it means to be a good teammate through all types of work experiences. I think those are things that have become more innate to me, and I can see that in other people who've probably experienced that too as student athletes or as any type of like athlete on a team.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. The other thing I'd say too is like the work ethic piece. Like to be an athlete, even if you weren't the best athlete or at a high level, there's still some type of work ethic that's there because you have practice every day and you have to
Yeah.
opt into that.
Yeah.
At work, you opt into it. You don't have
Yep.
to do it. Like it's a
There's a
little bit
reward at
different.
the
You
end
opt
of it,
into it.
but yes, you opt into it.
Exactly. Yeah, but you don't have to. And so you would see, like I like having that work ethic extend into now my work world. I think is something that like I can attribute to my swimming career. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
Another question I have, and this was kind of stemming from the one that I had
Yeah.
earlier, is how important is it for you to understand your why, and how you apply that to your career goals in choosing different worlds to work in and experience? What was that for you, and did it help you, to choose where you are now?
My why. It does. One, I'd say I realized like my why always changes.
Okay.
Like it changes over time.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that I have to be okay with that, like either through a life stage or
Mm-hmm.
life experience. Um, and I've realized, especially maybe the last 4 or 5 years or so, that I'm a lot more thoughtful about what type of work I'm doing or how I'm spending my time and energy. And that's even with work. And I have to feel fulfilled by it. And for me, I think that fulfillment actually kind of goes back to my definition of marketing. It's like I actually only want to do work where I feel like I can really leave an impact. It's not about like just it's not just about sales. It's
Yeah.
not just about kind of a quick success. It's like, are we really building something that can stand the test of time?
Yeah.
And is that the type of work that I can attempt to do? If not, then I'm realizing it may not be for me. Like
Yeah.
that's not where I spend my energy. And so, I'm starting to realize that, especially from a work point of view, like that more so has become my why. And then the second thing I'd say, and this is actually like on my Instagram title or bio now, which I'm not very active on
Yeah.
Instagram, but my bio is serve the season you're in. And
Mm.
so I've been really big over the last 2.5, 3 years on, what is my season to date? Because that is like the real life we're all living, and how am I serving that to my best? Like
Yeah.
what's needed? Am I giving it my all in space? And being okay with that and being ready to shift it based off of, the season and kind of what's needed during that time frame. And so that's been a really big part of my why lately. Like, am I serving the season I'm in?
Yeah, I
So,
love that. I mean, it's so important,
yeah.
like serve the season you're in. I think even when we spent some time through the pandemic, I even took a little bit of that to just like, let me take a little drum beat real quick to just what's the space that I'm in? What's important for me? What is really
Mm-hmm.
inspiring me into, you know, kind of check back in on here's my why. Am I still
Yeah.
there with it, or have things kind of evolved, and can I kind of add or take away from that? And I think that that's extremely important in this journey that we're in, beyond just the work we're doing, but in life in general, to just make sure we're always kind of
Yeah.
take that moment to understand the season that you're in, whether good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, and apply
Mm-hmm.
and figure things out and strategize and put some things together
Exactly.
for you, right?
Exactly. 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 And sometimes you realize what's needed. Like, hey, I'm actually really great at serving this need right now. Like that's probably my calling and where I need to be at the moment. So how do I go deep
Absolutely.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
this has been such a great episode. I'll close it out with just one final question, and what
Mm-hmm.
is it that that what advice would you really give those who are listening to the podcast, who are up and coming, still trying to figure it out? What's the advice that you would leave with them?
Hmm. Yeah, if someone's up and coming, I would say, and I can just go based off of my experience, but I would say um, be okay with diving really deep into something and exploring whether or not you like it. And if you don't like it, be okay with shifting, but with the idea of exploring something next.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I explored finance, did not like it. I explored insurance and actuarial science. Like I am not going to have a master's in statistics. Like no,
Yeah.
I do not like that. And then I learned that marketing is something that I actually enjoy. But had I not like dove deep into some of those areas and just explored it for a moment to test it, I don't think I would have known that or even landed with where I am today. And so yeah, my advice is if you have the ability to kind of dive deep and really try to experience it, and then once you find what you think you might like, go all in and become an expert. And if you want to pivot later, pivot. Like, don't get nervous about pivoting or making a change. If you really feel like this might not be it, make a pivot, but recommit to something else.
Yeah.
Don't, not do anything.
Don't just sit on your hands and not do anything. Like, actually get back out there and go figure it out. No, I love that.
Recommit.
I love that. You said two really good things there. And I think just to, oh my goodness, this is such a great episode. I wish we could continue on with this forever. Hopefully, when we get down the road, we'll be able to do this live. But one, thank you. I mean, it's such an inspiring conversation. I'm over here with goosebumps and some of the things that you said of like, let me get my stuff together so I can, get back to it. You know what I mean? And really re-energize. So I hope that this conversation does benefit those who are tuning in and listening. So Kerhyl, where can people find you? Where can they follow you on your journey and tap in, whether it's social media, LinkedIn, whatever it is?
Yeah. Social media, Instagram at Kerhyl, Kerhyl. My name is spelled uniquely, so it literally is just my first name, and no one has it. So you can follow me there. LinkedIn, of course. And those are the two big spots. I'm not a big social person.
No, all good.
I'm public and I'll stand off.
Nice. So, no, awesome. Well, once again, thank you. Really appreciate you being on the podcast. For those, if you guys haven't tuned in, we're on everywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube as well. So we're excited to really get this one out. And we look forward to talking to everyone again. Until next time, we'll see you. Peace.